When I was younger, I always had very big dreams of wanting to be a Hollywood star. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen. But I think I would want to tell her that we were still able to achieve our dreams.
This dream of becoming a Hollywood star, where did that come from?
Honestly, I think part of it is just the idea of wanting to be famous, and it sounds very vain.
But what's wrong with that? I mean, I'd love to be famous.
I think because it's just not socially acceptable to admit something like that. And I think that's what 99% of us live, is just in everyday life, going to work. Our feeling for success is very different to people who are the I was so insecure during uni and anxious, especially when it came to success and good grades, that I thought, okay, the more I do, the better. But big life lesson, quality over quantity. There are some days where I think, oh, it would have been easier if I just became a doctor and got paid a lot of money and got to save people's lives and did something really meaningful and impactful. But then my personal branding journey started about 4 years ago. Know that your definition of success is going to look different to a lot of the people you're comparing yourself to. I think it's the same idea on LinkedIn, is that you don't have to share everything about you. And if you're keeping some things private, it doesn't mean you're being dishonest. It doesn't mean you're being inauthentic. You can still be yourself, but you can choose the different aspects that you talk about, or the different parts of your life. I struggle with burnout like probably at least once a year. Every year I tell myself, oh, I'm going to be better, I'm going to have more balance, and then I never do.
A personal brand. In this day and age, who does not want a personal brand? So today we bring to you, in another episode of the IgnitedNeurons podcast, Rosie Chong. Rosie is the 9-to-5 personal branding girl that you can have a great conversation with. She's a social media content creator, a manager, and she's someone who really lives and breathes social media. She's someone who's had a deep impact on LinkedIn, has a LinkedIn top voice, and has been creating content for a very long time. She shares a beautiful journey of her wanting to become an actor first and then getting onto social media. And then the big secret, the big reveal of what she's working on right now happens towards the end of the episode. We will not share that in the highlights because we want you to stay on till the end. If you're watching this on YouTube, do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. The channel subscription means a lot to us, and I'll truly appreciate that. As we dive into this conversation with Rosie, we spoke about some practical insights that you can apply into your own lives, but we spoke about how this need for fame, this need to be famous is very innate in all of us, but we fear and do not speak of it. If this is something that's important to you, you'll enjoy the episode. Get out that notepad, get your pen out, and let's dive straight into the wisdom that Rosie has to share with us. For today's episode, I have a special guest. And I always say that, but I really mean it today. Because personal branding is something that's very close to my heart, and Rosie is the expert that you want to be talking to. Rosie, welcome to the conversation. Looking forward to this hour with you.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me, and hopefully I can be an expert in personal branding. Let's see what the next hour holds.
I'm sure about that. But before we move to personal branding, the first question that we open up, it's like our first bookend that we open up the conversation with is, if that 8-year-old Rosie were to be meeting you right now, having a conversation and seeing where you've come and arrived and whatever word we might want to use, what kind of a conversation do you think will happen between that 8-year-old little girl and you right now?
Think it would be a pretty positive conversation. When I was younger, I always had very big dreams of wanting to be a Hollywood star. That's very specific. I really wanted to be a Hollywood actress. Went through acting classes, did the whole thing, thought I was going to be, I guess, what Margot Robbie is now. Spoiler alert, that didn't happen. But I think I would want to tell her that we were still able to achieve our dreams, even in a different capacity, and that even when things go wrong or they're hard or they feel like it's the end of the world and how can anything ever get better, that it does, and that all of those low moments balanced with the high moments led us to who we are today. So I feel like it would be a very profound but, I don't know, eye-opening conversation, because when I think back to younger me, I had all of these big dreams, and if I think about just being that age, I think, oh, well, I didn't achieve any of those. But instead I've created a different path and set of goals and different parameters of what my dream life looks like, and it's normal for that to change. So I think it'll be a really fun conversation, very wholesome, I hope.
Wholesome. I love the words you're using. Profound, positive, and then wholesome. And before I unpack this further, this dream of becoming a Hollywood star, where did that come from? Like, what was the foundation to that dream?
Honestly, I think part of it is just the idea of wanting to be famous, and it sounds very vain. That was it. I wanted to have, a nice big house, and I wanted to people to come up with me and take photos of me and say, "Oh my gosh, sign my autograph." And this is I was a very vain child. The main one I really wanted was I would watch a TV show. My favorite show, not my favorite show. One of the shows I enjoyed watching was an Australian show called Neighbours, and it's where a lot of Australian actors and actresses start out. It's where Margot Robbie started out. And I just wanted to have my name in the opening credits of a show or a movie, and that was my dream. And I don't really know where it stemmed from because I was never very good at acting. I tried it for a while, was terrible at it. And it wasn't even stem the fact of, "Oh, I had such a passion for acting or storytelling," or all the things that should actually make someone like, things that you should have if you want a career in acting. I didn't have any of those. It was very, very surface level.
So when you started, you said it was with a future and with the need to become famous. I could see like there was this slight resistance, something there that happened that you then kind of wanted to also correct yourself. But help me understand, like I've seen this a lot, and since we're in the domain of personal branding in our conversation, but what's wrong with that? I mean, I'd love to be famous. I'd love to be signing autographs, as you were saying. But why do we, as human beings, try and stop ourselves from being that when we say that out loud?
I think because it's just not socially acceptable to admit something like that, because I think when you say, "Oh, I wanna be famous and I want people to see me and give me attention," it's not the traits of a person that we redeem as a good thing or that we deem as something that is empathetic or humble. The people that we look up to or the people that we aspire to be, that we talk about that are the best in society are grounded, they're humble, they're not people who say, pick me, I wanna be the center of attention," because I think as a society, we tend to see those traits of being negative, being vain, being selfish, not caring about others, not putting others first. It's all about them, and I think saying, "Hey, I wanna be famous because I want attention," is usually a bad thing or considered a bad thing because it's, "Oh, well, you're not being nice or empathetic or humble or grounded. You're being selfish and self-centered in a way." And I think that's where that connotation comes from.
Yeah, it's a very interesting conversation where we're delving into. There's this Indian megastar. His name is Shah Rukh Khan. Maybe you've seen some of Bollywood romantic movies of his. But he once said, and I don't know the words exactly, but he said, before you become a philosopher, try to become rich and famous, something like that. And to
Interesting.
me, it also sounds right? I mean, part of me feels like until unless you like really make it in life, you can do all the philosophy that you want to, but that's not going to pay your bills. What
No,
what thoughts emerge for you?
I find that interesting because when I think about, big quotes that are remembered or advice that gets thrown around on the internet, a lot of it comes from people who already have quite a big platform. So
Correct.
I think his own philosophy, for lack of a better word, or his own thinking of, "Oh, become rich and famous first." It's like, well, you're already gonna have a leg up if you are well known, you have money, you have access to more resources than other people don't. It already sets you up to the next one. But in terms of I don't know if I agree with if you wanna become a philosopher, you have to do that first. I think anyone can have deeply meaningful and profound advice to share, but if you're thinking it from a sense of a very, like, black and white view of a philosopher, of someone who is well known for what they're doing and remembered for the ages, sure, maybe they're rich and famous, great, but I don't think every great philosopher, or if you're gonna be a great philosopher in general, do you have to be rich and famous? It's an interesting quote or, like, an interesting philosophy that he has.
Yeah, it's a very complex world, and drawing different parallels from entertainment to now cricket. Like part of me feels like we can do all the rags to riches stories. We can do everything where someone became like really famous and came from humble backgrounds and did something that the world did not expect them to do, and then those stories become like you start to idolize them, right?
Mhm.
But what if a million others who don't make it, a million others who fail, a million others who don't even see that day of light? I just feel like fascinated about them. What about their stories? Because they're never going to come out.
And that's the thing, and I think that's what 99% of us live is just in everyday life, going to work, having a good week at work with clients, maybe getting a promotion or a pay rise, and they're our successes. Our ceiling for success is very different to people who are the 1%. And there's a reason there's the 1%, but it's just an interesting observation as the collective group of humans of why do we put certain people on a pedestal, and at the end of the day we are all still people. Some people just have more money, or they're on a screen, or they can sing really well, or they're really athletic. Why do we put them up here and have this weird parasocial relationship with it?
Yeah, yeah. Again, I think comes back to what you were saying, because society has fed us that message very strongly, and there's a lot of almost like unlearning that needs to happen. And I think human beings are not really good at learning and unlearning very quickly. Is what my assumption is.
Yeah, I don't think it'll go anywhere anytime soon, this concept of celebrity.
I agree with that. But going back to your story, when so growing up, any memories, anything that you feel kind of started to vividly so define who Rosie's going to be as she grows up.
I feel like being the little sibling, like the younger sibling, I think just started me off for where I was gonna go, because I was always fighting for attention, for my parents giving attention to my older sister, and then thinking, "Oh, but what about me? What about me?" And I think that's just where it started, of this internalized competition that I was so desperate for attention, or the need for validation, which is not a great thing to admit, but it's just where it started. And I've, had a great upbringing and a lovely sister and great parents. So I don't want to diminish any of that at all. They raised me right and they raised me proper. But I feel like as a younger sister, I always thought, hey, me, like, what about me? It's not fair. Like, I remember that so vividly as a kid. But more on a more serious note, I can't really think of a moment that I remember thinking, oh, I definitely want to work in social media, or I want to write a book or be a keynote speaker. I feel like a lot of that I've discovered quite recently, probably in the last 5 or so years, maybe 5 to 10 years. Like I said, I thought I was gonna be an actress growing up, and then never really knew what I wanted to do during high school. And I think the concept of being comfortable in front of the screen, or comfortable performing or talking, I think then manifested itself into, I remember in high school wanting to maybe be a journalist and being on a news presenter, which again is this very similar idea of holding the space, people listening to me, being able to hold a room and hold an audience and share a story or communicate. And I think that's just kind of manifested in different ways. And it's now in the form of creating content and being a speaker, being on podcasts, and still getting to share my story. It's just evolved into what I would consider more tangible and more realistic for what I'm doing, especially because my acting skills are like zero.
Did you ever try to work on those acting skills?
I did. My parents were very patient with me. I did musical theater in high school. I did TV drama classes outside of school. I did auditions. I had a talent manager. I did the whole thing. I was just rubbish. I was really bad. But at the age of, right old age of 10 or 12, I thought, oh, this is going to be my big break. And I just don't know what I wasn't good at, but apparently I just couldn't convey the emotions in a believable way is what you need as an actor.
Wow, that's amazing. And so parents being patient, taking you to classes, taking you to auditions, all that jazz happened in life.
Yeah, they indulged my begging of, "Please, mom, please."
That's so sweet. It's funny how and so I have two boys, Rosie. They're 14 and 11, and it's quite a challenge. And what you're saying is, and your two siblings.
Yeah, me and my sister.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, with my little one also, the elder one's in a different zone. He's getting into like teenage space. So I tell the little one that his hormones are all over the place. You got to be patient with him, man. There's no other way to go around with an elder brother. But as you went through kind of uni, what was life like? Where were things progressing through that journey?
Uni, I thought, was the be all and end all for the rest of my life. I hustled pretty hard. I barely missed classes, and when I did, I was still joining class, watching the recordings of lectures at home. I was always working, just a retail job, nothing fancy, but always working, and then knew I needed to do everything I could to build up essentially a good resume so that I was hireable, so I could get into my dream career, dream life, and all of it could just fall into place. So I was president at the Marketing Society. I was on the cheerleading team. I did exchange in Canada. I did something stupid, like I think 7 internships over my time at uni. I'd moved to Sydney to do an internship. I applied for grad roles and all of that. I got decent grades. And then I had my plan for uni basically since the end of first year. Timeline sorted. Had a 4-year degree, which I pushed out so I could do a summer internship and I could do exchange. And then, yep, I'm going to land a grad role because that's what they tell you. You have to get a grad role. Otherwise, there's no other alternative.
Mm.
Went through all of the interview processes, didn't get a grad job, and thought absolutely spiraled, thought my life was over. How have my perfect plan not come to life? I was president and I did all these extracurricular activities and I did internships. I got good grades. How did I not land the role? And so I flew off to Europe for 6 weeks when I graduated uni because I just thought, you know what? I have no idea what I'm going to do. I will deal with getting a job when I go back.
Mm.
I landed a job in media and advertising and haven't really looked back.
Wow. What did the time in Europe, what did that do for you?
Honestly, I think it just let me live a little and be 22. Honestly, that was the biggest thing. It was fun. I got to be young and feel like I had no responsibilities. I was lucky enough to still be living at home so I could blow all my money on traveling to Europe. Obviously much better with money now, but it just allowed me, I think, to relax because I feel like all of high school and all of uni, I was so motivated by having good grades, and if I didn't have good grades, I was a failure, and if I was a failure, I had nothing left to live for, being dramatic, of course. What would you expect from a drama kid? So, I think it just gave me the headspace to separate myself from not getting it right or not doing what the right thing was or what the successful thing was. And then when I came back, I'm pretty sure I landed a full-time job within a few weeks. So it was good.
Yeah, I love to kind of pause and let our listeners know. I think this idea that you're sharing, Rosie, I really kind of resonate with that and find it of a lot of power. That you create yourself that headspace to separate yourself from the situation that you're in, because it's all emotional drama that's going within. Life's over, failure, nothing's gonna happen, and I think building that space really. I mean, all the skills are right there. So coming back and getting that job, beautiful. Let me kind of dive into those internships a little bit. 7 internships. That's quite a bit.
Yeah, it was a lot. I even got to a stage where I just deleted some off my resume and my LinkedIn profile because I just thought, you know what, this is not relevant. I'd rather keep the ones that are more important or more relevant in that space.
Right.
And yeah, it was too many. I was so desperate is definitely the correct word. I was so desperate to just make connections and fill up my literal resume with as much as I could that would then set me up to get a grad job because I was so insecure during uni and anxious, especially when it came to success and good grades, that I thought, okay, the more I do, the better. But big life lesson, quality over quantity. Some of those were horrendous and a waste of time and unpaid and didn't teach me anything. So would not recommend that to anybody.
This thought that you're sharing, being insecure with success, and I know we'll come to the journey, but where have you reached right now? Like, how do you feel about this idea of the word success, dream life, and what's your relationship with all of that?
I think it's much more positive. I still struggle if I get something wrong or I fail or it doesn't go the way that I had planned, but I think I'm much more motivated in a positive way. I'm no longer motivated by the need to get good grades or the need to have the perfect resume, but instead I'm motivated by, okay, well, where's my dream set and what do I want to achieve? Where am I? What's the gap? How do I do that? And doing that in a much more manageable and realistic way. And I think I feel very lucky to be in this position where I can experiment with a few different non-traditional paths of what people would do for work or a way of living. And that is what I'm realizing. I'm so grateful that I'm in this position. Sometimes I'm definitely in a side, there's always a downside. There's always saying regrets is a hard word because, I don't typically like to regret things because it's not a great way to be living and moving forwards. But there are some days where I think, oh, it would have been easier if I just became a doctor and got paid a lot of money and got to save people's lives and did something really meaningful and impactful. But then I'm in a career that I love that is typically not known as well paid, but I'm so fulfilled in what I'm doing that it kind of balances out. So it's this very interesting perspective to see people in my life who are in a full-time job or in a career that is deemed successful based on what they earn, rather than successful based on how much joy they have in what they're doing, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's such a fascinating relationship between, again, society's norm is that what's the size of your paycheck? When are you getting that corner office? And that's the definition, right? No one talks about how do you feel about going about 35 hours or 40 hours of work, whatever work week that one has. And our listeners, Rosie, are in that age group of 25 to 35. And so they're trying to build their careers where it seems that success is that top spot, that big paycheck when I'm gonna get to like 150 to 200,000 and so what. But here's a challenge. So through all of this, when did this journey of personal branding, and when did you decide that social media was the space for expression? The actor within had to come out on social media.
But yeah, and I think my love for social media started a very long time ago. I think the reality of that actually then becoming a career and how it came to fruition in the terms of content creation and personal branding was much more recent. I launched my first YouTube video when I was at the ripe old age of 14. Think when YouTube kind of first started and the idea of the influencer was conceived, I again this obsession I think with wanting to be famous and followed, and the social validation was a big motivating factor. That's now evolved into, oh, I love to create, I love to share, I love to inspire. So it's a much more positive view on being a creator. But my journey started well over 15 years ago, with YouTube, and then it was having a MySpace account and MSN. That just kind of kept going, and my YouTube lasted no more than 2 months. People found it at high school, and I deleted it very swiftly. I was too embarrassed, and that confidence and self-assurance and being self-aware enough of, oh, it doesn't matter what other people think, took a long time to evolve, and I've only really sort of become that confident in the last, I would say, 2 to 3 years. But then my personal brand journey started about 4 years ago when I was working at a social media agency, and one of the services we were selling was LinkedIn management, and I was in the sales team. So essentially, I had to find clients. So that's one purpose of LinkedIn. The other is, oh, well, if I'm going to be having to sell LinkedIn management, I may as well learn how to use it. So I jumped on the platform and those two goals in mind, and it I feel like I landed on LinkedIn at the right time. I was able to build a community at a time where there weren't a lot of people posting, or the people who were posting were C-suite executives or people with 20 plus years experience, not people who were 3 years in their career and were 25 like I was. I ended up leaving that workplace after a year, and there was no need for me to have to stay on LinkedIn because my new job had nothing to do with it. I was still working in social media, but I didn't need to be selling. I didn't need to find clients, but I'd found such a love with getting to genuinely share my journey and share my experience and meet people online, because in-person networking terrifies the daylights out of me, that it was like, oh, I've started living my childhood dream of having a fan base, which is never how I would describe it. But I think if I liken it to how I was as a kid, it's kind of like how that came to fruition in a way. But to me, it was a much more healthy relationship with it. It was, oh, I love documenting stuff. I love sharing. I love getting to inspire and teach others. And so that's where it started. And it just became this absolute love. And it's been a love-hate relationship over the last 4 years. Been through a lot of burnout, been through a lot of stages where I want to quit LinkedIn, but it is easily one of the best things I've ever done. It's led to a lot of opportunities. It helped me land my last job that I was in for 3 years. It helped me land the role I'm in now. It's helped me quit full-time work to be able to work part-time and do content creation and freelance. It's helped me, like I was kind of saying earlier, it's helped me create this path that is not necessarily considered traditional. It's not, oh, you work 9 to 5 and you come home. It's, oh, well, I don't work 9 to 5. I have my own clients. I go to brand events. I work with people around the world. I get to document my life and put it on the internet. It's all of these different things. I'll often say, oh, hey, I'm getting dinner with a TikTok friend. That's not normal,
Yeah.
but I love it. And I think that's why everything kind of worked out for a reason. I genuinely believe that not getting that graduate role back in uni when I was spiraling meant that I got my very first role that I did in media, which kind of opened up the doors to, oh, There's a career in social. Okay, let's explore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very interesting, right? You cannot connect the dots going forwards. You can only do that backwards. And now that you look back, you can all of that starts to make sense. But for someone who say I know 2020, 2021 was like the early days where things were like starting to push. But now you look at LinkedIn, there are, I think, if there are 1 billion users, 900 million out of those are wanting or creating content. It seems it's not the truth, only 1% do. But what would be your advice if someone's wanting to start their presence on social media and say they pick LinkedIn because of professional reasons? What would be your advice? Like, if the top three things that you would say to them that this is what you need to make sure that you think about before you dive in?
I think the first is taking the time to set yourself up, and that can come in a few different ways. It can come in making sure that your profile is up to date. Your LinkedIn profile, it's essentially your landing page. It's one of the first places people will click to. It's also follows you around quite literally wherever you post or comment. If people click on your name, they're gonna go to your LinkedIn landing page. Spending the time to clean it up, that could be deleting old jobs, it could be adding keywords in your headline, adding a header image, making sure that your your profile image is up to date and not put on private or whatnot. So we're giving that time. The other part of that is maybe spending some time researching as well. I love getting to consume other people's content because it helps me feel inspired with my own. It helps me understand what's working on the platform. What are people talking about? What could you talk about that's not already out there? It's great for networking. So that's definitely the first one, is just taking the time to familiarize yourself, learn, digest, update, amend whatever you need to do.
Mm.
The second is know that your definition of success is going to look different to a lot of the people you're comparing yourself to. So you need to just not worry about, oh, what are other people doing that have 20,000 followers, 100,000 followers, people who have been doing this for 4 years. Don't compare yourself to them. Instead, use them as inspiration. Use them as your motivation. Oh, how do I get to that goal? How do I do this? How do I achieve what they're doing? Rather than, oh no, I only got 2 likes, not 200. Everyone starts at zero, quite literally. So just starting, you're doing so much more than 95% of other people are doing. So that's my second one. The third one would be, the more you do it, the better you get. So no one's going to be great at sharing their first post, maybe not even your first 10 posts, maybe not even your first 30. You might not feel like you know what you're doing. You might not feel confident. You might not have found the right way to find your voice or even the format of content that you're sharing. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. So even if you feel awkward or weird or embarrassed, don't worry about it, because at the end of the day, LinkedIn's actually a really positive place with a lot of very supportive cheerleaders, essentially, and people who are there to hype you up. So just try, because you don't know where it can open, what door it could open, or where it could lead you if you just don't do anything.
Yeah, yeah. I think I love your advice here, because sometimes people get very impatient with it, and I think that's the recipe for disaster, because you then want the outcome that someone else is getting, and that's never the right thing to do. Comparison, I think, let alone on social media, but in life itself, can ruin someone's mind space. And yeah, research others' content. I think this is all valuable. I think what I'm also kind of connecting this back to, Rosie, is that what you just said a few minutes ago, which was to almost achieve that freedom, right? That's where social media, that why for you was very clear, that aspiration of becoming the actor, of touching lives, of sharing content and building that, we can call that fan base of, I don't like the words fan base and followers, as you were saying, but I think that's what social media at the end of the day means. So love that. Any stories that you feel in terms of your interactions with people on LinkedIn that like stood out, that became really human for you, just beyond the networking that happens on the platform?
I don't know. This starts as a not positive story, but it ends pretty positively. So I remember sharing a post 3 years ago, and it was at a time where a lot of women, specifically, or people who identified as female, were getting unsolicited DMs, inappropriate comments on their body, on, hey, marry me, go on a date with me. And so there was a big wave of content, a lot of from myself and from other female creators, of, hey, LinkedIn's not a dating platform. Stop hitting on me. Stop making comments on my body. And I made a post about it. the post ended up on the wrong side of the internet, got absolutely slandered, hated, never had so many hate comments in my life. People commenting on my body, saying inappropriate comments, saying I was an attention seeker, so all of these awful things. And I remember so vividly at the time sitting in bed at 1 a.m, refreshing and new comments always coming through and deleting and questioning my self-worth based on what some strangers were saying. And I had a group of friends or still people I'm still in touch with in my network on LinkedIn who were commenting for me in response to the hate comments saying, that's inappropriate. Why would you do that? How dare you? Tagging their workplaces and people who were standing up for me that I'd never met in person. And I think it was after that post where my thick skin came in and my concept of, well, it doesn't matter what other people think. That was my big turning moment. So although it's not necessarily one specific person or one interaction or a person who changed my life, it was this community I had met on LinkedIn of fellow creators, a lot of them international, from the UK, America, Canada, that were defending some stranger, me, like they'd never met, because they're just genuinely good people. And that was one of the biggest moments. I thought, it's not just randoms on the internet at a networking event or something. It's, these are friends.
Yeah.
These are good people. And
Yeah.
that's why I love LinkedIn so much.
Beautiful. People standing up for you, and it shows the power of the collective. But it's fascinating how the right intention could also fall on the wrong side for the internet, and can go places. Another one of those words that I think kind of plays on my mind when I'm thinking of my social media presence is this word authenticity. That I want to be someone who I am on social media, but sometimes it's almost like you have to filter yourself a little bit, because if you be completely honest, then these comments sometimes can get through that thick skin. Where do you see those lines blur between being who you are on social media versus holding on a little bit?
I think you can still be private while being authentic. And I think when I strip back to thinking of other social platforms and not just specifically LinkedIn, there's this idea, especially with relationships, that, oh, you have to have a very public relationship or you have to share everything. And if you don't, then you don't have the perfect relationship. And I think it's something I've struggled with. My partner's not on social media and I'm very prominent on social. So trying to find that balance in my relationship online has been interesting. But I think it's the same idea on LinkedIn, is that you don't have to share everything about you. And if you're keeping some things private, it doesn't mean you're being dishonest. It doesn't mean you're being inauthentic. You can still be yourself, but you can choose the different aspects that you talk about or the different parts of your life. I don't talk about my wedding or my outfits on my LinkedIn, but I share a lot of that on my TikTok and my Instagram. And it doesn't mean that I'm being inauthentic on LinkedIn. It just means I know what I'm curating in intentionally with my content for what I want to be known for. I'm still sharing my tips, my experience, my journey, my highs and lows, my tone of voice, my face. And that to me is the essence of authenticity, is all of that bundles up parts of you in who you are online, rather than hiding behind a post that was written by AI or telling a story that's actually copy and pasted from someone else or faking clients. All of that is the definition of being inauthentic. So you can be authentic, but it doesn't have to, it's not all or nothing. I don't give all or nothing. There's some of the biggest creators on LinkedIn who I know don't give all or nothing. They give a certain chunk, and it doesn't have to be more than that. I think it's interesting when we're kind of going this idea of like the relationship we have with celebrities and influencers, that we expect as a person they have to give us everything. I mean, think about when a celebrity couple breaks up or divorces, or an influencer, and you're like, oh, well, why? Tell us. Why? Well, if you were sitting down at a coffee shop and a stranger came up to you and asked you why you got divorced, you're not going to tell them. So why should you do that? And it's that same concept as a creator online on LinkedIn, is that I don't have to share everything, and that's okay.
Yeah, I love this statement. You can be private and still be authentic. I think that's a very powerful statement. One thing again comes back to mind, and the podcast almost like is an extension of me trying to soundboard my thoughts with someone who's an expert. So I'd love to see how you feel about that. One thing that I feel like over the last 4 or 5 years, I think post pandemic, I've seen so many coaches emerge, and including me. So many coaches emerge on social media, right? And then some of them are extremely credible, who've been doing beautiful work, but some of them are really new. And part of me sometimes gets, I would not use the word angry, but aggravated in a way that I know that this person is not authentic, and I know this person when I met them in person, they're not the same person as they're showing up on social media. How do you feel? How do you manage that, and how do you feel about that?
I hate it. In terms of how I manage it, I feel like there's no perfect way. I can be pretty gullible, and I feel like I can sometimes have a pretty bad read on people where I think they are very genuine or they really have great intentions, and I'm just getting strung along and they actually just want something from me or they're not here to, have it as a two-way street. So I'm probably not the best person to ask how to manage it. I always just take it case by case, and if someone goes too far or I think they're being inappropriate or not themselves, I try and call it out, but I'm not great at it for sure. So I don't love it. I think there's a lot of bullshit on the internet, a lot of bullshit on LinkedIn, and then find it exhausting that sometimes I just have to block people. I have to step away from the platform. I have to take time for myself. Your whole life shouldn't be online. It's unhealthy. I think it's just being aware enough that if like trusting your gut, if a message seems a little dodgy or if a deal feels too good to be true, maybe it is. And it's okay to have your guard up a little bit. It's okay to take precautions because at the end of the day, you still have to put yourself first.
Love that. Put yourself first. And I think that awareness also definitely helps. I have a friend who's very good at dealing with bullshit. And whenever he sees that there's fire on a building, he rams into it. I run away from it. He rams into it. So I put him forward.
I'm going the other way.
Yeah, I also run the other way. You spoke about burnout, and I don't know if that connects back to social media and how you were approaching your brand slash things. But can you speak a little bit more on that? Like, what do you think led to that burnout, and how did that feel?
I struggle with burnout like probably at least once a year, and it's always somewhere between September and November. It's right at the end of the year, just before Christmas. And every year I tell myself, oh, I'm going to be better, I'm going to have more balance, and then I never do. And I think a lot of it stems from my personality that I'm big people pleaser. I suck at saying no, and I just love to give, and I have FOMO, so I never want to miss out on something. So the first couple of years I struggled with burnout was very much I was just doing too much. I was working full time. I was working with brands. I was doing 5 posts a week for LinkedIn. I was doing a lot. I was spending hours a day on LinkedIn plus full time work. I was just doing too much. And it just felt like I'd had all of the creativity zapped out of me and nothing was bringing joy in my life. Everything was hard. It was a chore. It just felt laborious and exhausting. I think each time I've struggled with burnout since, the biggest one I struggled with is definitely about 2021. Ever since then, I felt it not as bad, but it's always the same combination of things. It's I'm spending too much time socializing, but also working, but also freelancing and creating content, consuming content. I'm not sleeping enough. I'm not exercising enough. And it all just spirals because I haven't had time to recharge, essentially.
I need to take a deep breath. That was wow. There's a lot happening there. I think we've all been there, Rosie, because part of us, and I'll say for myself, part of me starts to feel when I'm doing too much that would lead to the outcome or the success that I'm hoping and wishing for. And so, since we've launched the podcast, we'll be releasing our third episode tomorrow. And I see myself going on to the YouTube Studio platform and refreshing. When will the next subscriber coming? And then I start to also become aware that okay, that's unhealthy because you're not going to get viral in 2 weeks. And if you do, then it'll happen on its own. You can only put out good content in the world. But it is so hard to stop yourself because you're wanting to see that success. So
But totally.
I understand that. But one promise that I've made for myself, and this happened. So we moved as a family to Australia 22 months ago now, which is very recent, still feels. But since being here, my sleep and my exercise are the two things that I've not compromised on. And I think that's really helped. That's really helped.
Having that balance is so important. And one of the things I'd said to myself last year, which by the end of the year I was not doing a good job at, but was trying to set more boundaries. It was trying to have healthier boundaries between work and life, between saying no to social events or checking out when I needed to. I've got better at it, but I still know it's kind of a running joke in my friendship group that if someone wants to make plans with me, they have to book me out at least 4 weeks ahead because my calendar is so hectic and it's not been a great start to the year in terms of balancing my calendar, but we're working on it.
We'll have, you and I will have an offline conversation on that. But I think at the end of the day, balance looks different for everyone, and we all are in pursuit of that balance. So I think yeah, that's something that we'll kind of keep moving forward on. And then yeah, each year we're trying to build ourselves to that next level. So hopefully this year the burnout might not come. You never know.
True. Let's hope.
What's crossed? What's emerging for Rosie in 2025?
Oh, I'm trying to plan a wedding. So that's one thing.
Congratulations.
Thank you, which is very exciting. The other big things, I'm working on a secret project that I'm not going to say because if I say it and it doesn't happen, I'll be disappointed in myself. But that's slowly happening in the background, hopefully. It's related to personal branding. That's all I'm going to say. And I'm trying to basically build out more of my own clients finally. It's been about 3 years. A lot of people thought I don't work full time anymore or even work, which is really interesting. But up until December 2024, I was still working full time. So this year I am taking a step back from full time work so I can try being my own boss on the side, getting clients, working more with brands. And that's as far as I was ready to go, is going down to part time work rather than completely quitting full time work. I just knew financially that was not the right move for myself. 2025 is the year of experimentation with putting more time and investment into LinkedIn and personal branding and working with brands and content and trying to pursue, I guess, again, that very non-traditional path that's not just the corporate rat race. Because I realized that was just not bringing me joy. I was working 40 hours a week in something that I liked doing, but I just knew that there was something more. And when you talk about to someone, do what you love and you'll never spend a day working or whatever the saying is, I was realizing that I love the career in social media, but my passion is so much in getting to create content for myself and then personal branding. So those two and having more time for that is very exciting. So that's the 2025 goals.
Amazing. Big. Maybe this is the right platform for you to reveal that secret, because then the universe and all of us will conspire to make that happen.
Just between us, I'm trying to write a book.
Amazing. So this is on YouTube now. Amazing. We'll talk about that offline because that's something that is on a Google Doc for me as well. Maybe we'll complete and launch ours together. Finally, a few decades from now, Rosie, there'll be a moment when you'll be 85 years old and you look still 25. So you're 85 years old.
Funny.
And that 85-year-old Rosie looks back. What advice would she have for you right now?
I think that she would have the advice to don't doubt yourself so much and just give it a try, because the worst that can happen is someone says no, or maybe you just don't get it right the first time, so you can try it in a different way. I think that is going to be the biggest thing, because I know how much that's held me back personally for so long, of this fear, anxiety, and doubt. So I feel like 85-year-old me would say, just try it, because you can't even imagine where it could lead to. Again, wholesome.
Wholesome. We started the conversation on profound, positive, and wholesome, and we are ending it on wholesome as well. It's been a pleasure to have you. And this phrase, just try it, I think you're taking that Nike slogan to the next level for yourself. So just try it. I'm pretty sure.
We're the Nike sponsorship now.
Yeah. That'll be your first client. You can reach out to them. Amazing. Thank you for the conversation, Rosie. Truly appreciate it. I'm pretty sure listeners had a great time and they got a lot to learn. For all the pearls of wisdom that Rosie had, you want to go back and check the episode again. If you're on YouTube, like, share, and subscribe. And if you're on any other podcast platforms, then leave us a comment and share this with others. Thanks, Rosie, for the hour. And we truly appreciate you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Ignite Neurons podcast. If you found value in this, here's what I recommend. Take out a paper or a diary and just put down one thing that you can change about your life because you listen to this podcast. I'd really appreciate if you could share that in the comments below, because I'd love to see how it's impacting you or not. If you're on YouTube and watching this, then like, share, and subscribe, and please make this wisdom go viral. And if you're someone who loves your podcast on the go, then Spotify and Apple Podcasts are your go-to places, or wherever you're listening to this, just like, share it with a friend, and leave a comment, because I'd love to engage, love to have a conversation with you. Until next time, till we meet again, keep those neurons ignited, stay curious, keep learning, be someone who embraces a growth mindset, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.